My 42F, husband 42M, has informed me he intends to go on a gaycation with his Bill 35M in Ibiza. How do I handle this? So me and my husband have been happily married for about 16 years, give or take. We both have stable careers, good family life, and are fairly fortunate despite the cost of living racking the UK right now. We have 2 boys, 15 and 10, and up until the Sunday, thought we had it pretty good. We argue sometimes, of course, but never gotten too bad, and we have a pretty decent sex life with some exploration, but I won't get into that. Long and short is on Sunday, just after I dropped our boys off at their friends, my husband asked me if we had the house alone, and more importantly, do I have a minute? I said yes, and he sat me down, then got out this printed poster for some sort of orgy and started explaining to me the concept of a gaycation. How it's where straight men go to somewhere with sun, sand, and booze and become gay for the duration of the trip, but that's fine because it doesn't actually count, because what happens on the gaycation stays on the gaycation. I was just completely silent and mortified, even more so when he said he was looking into booking a trip to Ibiza next year with his Bill, his sister's husband, to experience it for himself. When he finally let me speak, I just said, I need him to be clear with me, is he gay? Because if yes, that's okay, but we need to figure out what happens going forward. I didn't let myself get angry or upset. I was just stunned. He swore up and down how he's not gay and he's 100% attracted to women and of course still loves me and our boys. So I said, well, do you think you're bi maybe? And he got very defensive, saying how I need to drop the accusations and that this is the beauty of gaycation. It allows straight men to experience gayness without actually being gay, and how it's like going to an aquarium. And again, he was adamant. He doesn't find men's bodies or genitalia exciting at all, but he needs to experience this apparently. I said, well, I'm really not comfortable, because even if he was bi, this would be explicitly cheating on me, and he got angry and reiterated he's not, because that's the beauty of a gaycation, etc. I just had enough and left the room. I ignored him for the rest of the day, but we spoke at tea where I again asked him, why does he want to do this so bad if he's not gay? He said how he's interested in how gay men's live differ to straight men's, and that unfortunately, once the gaycation begins, it's simply impossible for a man to resist, and he must surrender himself mind, body and soul to the gaycation or be destroyed. I really can't put into words how surreal it was, because he was speaking so matter-of-factly, and he again insists this is a thing that straight men do all the time, and how he's actually doing it a bit late. I just said to him, if he has any love for me, then he can't go ahead with this, and if he does, the marriage will be dead. We didn't speak anymore after that. Since then, he's mentioned no more of it, but somehow, and this is what scares me a lot too, that decision genuinely seems to be tearing him up. He didn't go into work on Monday, and only went in half a day yesterday, because he told them he just felt too ill, and he just looks distraught every time I see him. I really don't think he's wholly gay, though I can absolutely believe he's bi, but I'd rather we talk about that in a healthy way rather than this incredibly weird denialism around going on a sex holiday to Ibiza. Has anyone known straight guys to do this and come back, and just go back to being straight? Like, surely, that can't be a thing that happens. I'm so out of my depth here, and I just don't know how to even initiate the conversation. For the record, I also haven't mentioned it to his sister yet. I don't know how I'd even break it to her. Thanks for any help. I just don't even want to think, so being able to get this out there has helped even just a little bit. Edit. While this blew up, this has been incredibly sobering, and I think I've now confirmed what I already knew to be the case. The marriage is dead, one way or another. In a way, I was in denial myself about that. I have contacted my SIL and she initially screamed at me, calling me a liar, and even insinuated I was trying to steal her husband. She rang me back shortly after, apologized, and admitted she was in deep, deep shock. I've asked my parents to look after the boys, and we're going to meet tomorrow to discuss this deeper. I've also texted my husband and told him he will need to make alternative accommodation arrangements, but he will not be sleeping here tonight, and a bag will be waiting for him. Not sure if the mods want to lock the post or not, but I think I've got my answers. Thank you for all the kind words, especially Champion Flight, who really gave me the good dose of reality I needed. P.S. I see a lot of people asking about the aquarium, and at risk of doxing myself, there is a pretty famous aquarium in the UK called the Deep. At the very end, you walk through a tunnel that goes underneath the main fish tank, so it's quite immersive, I suppose. My husband explained the aquarium thing in that it's a bit like that. You go there and you observe the fishes, you even get a bit up close, but you never actually enter the water, get emotionally invested, or become a fish, gay. So it doesn't really count. It was a very bizarre analogy, and I pointed out it still makes no sense, and he just got more in a huff, and how I just don't get it. And frankly, I still don't. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Your husband isn't proposing a gaycation. He's proposing cheating on you with men while using magical thinking to pretend it doesn't count. The fact that he's planning this with his sister's husband makes it even more disturbing. His bizarre explanation about surrendering mind, body, and soul isn't straight man curiosity. It's someone desperately trying to justify exploring his sexuality while keeping his heterosexual marriage. His depression about not being able to go isn't about missing a vacation. It's about being forced to confront his sexuality without his convenient, what happens in Ibiza stays in Ibiza excuse. His meltdown over not going shows how desperately he wants to avoid facing this reality. OP. I read over this multiple times, and I guess the worst part is I know you're completely right. OP should consider about the divorce. OP. I wanted to avoid the divorce option, but I guess it's the only option, isn't it? Commenter 2. So this is just a thought, but I'm wondering if he was really planning on doing the gaycation, or if that was just a cover to try to get you to agree to it. What if the real plan was to get with women while he's down there? OP. I hadn't really thought of that, TBH. And now the thought terrifies me. From the way he was talking about men, the fact he had a poster for a gay orgy. I mean, it's one hell of a bluff, surely. Commenter 3. Tell him you're gonna have a straightcation while he's gone, and you're going to surrender mind, body, and soul to other men. Honest to God, if my husband proposed this to me, I'd use his time away to pack up, move out, and have divorce papers waiting for him. Update 1. So when I last posted, I'd contacted my husband to tell him he wouldn't be staying at home tonight and a bag would be waiting for him. As you can imagine, we argued. Quite badly. I won't go into the specific details, but no, I'm 100% on board with the fact at a minimum he's bi, might even be gay altogether. We've had arguments in the past, but I've genuinely never seen him have such a childish tantrum before, screaming about how I just don't understand the gaycation. Absolutely despise that phrase now. And insinuating I'm actually homophobic because I refuse to allow him to participate in this cultural exchange with the gay community. A lot of you said to ask him if it'd be acceptable if the roles were in reverse, and I did say would it be acceptable if I went and slept with other guys during that week? Like fucking clockwork, he was very angry and offended, saying it's completely different because a gaycation means nothing, and what happens on the gaycation stays on the gaycation, etc., so doesn't actually count. Whereas I'd just be straight up cheating. Well, I turned it around on him. No, but you see, what happens in Manchester stays in Manchester. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't count. It's like bird watching. And I think it got through to him. He went all quiet and then started crying, admitting the thought of me sleeping with another man is destroying his heart, but relationships need sacrifices, so agreed, while in tears. That way he goes on a gaycation. I'll get 1 week in Manchester to do whatever I want. He doesn't want me to, but that's fair in a twisted way, he supposed. I told him to get out of my house. Thankfully, he left without a fight. I know it's incredibly petty, but I also drained the joint bank account, legal in the UK, so he couldn't try to use it against me. About an hour later, I got rang up by his mom, my MIL, who just screamed at me about being a cheating WH*E, how I was horrible, what about the kids, etc. When I finally got my composure back, I just said, ask your son about the gaycation. Obviously, at first she got angry, but I said, no, just ask him about the gaycation. He'll explain, but she called me a fucking joke and hung up. Later on, getting into the evening, got another phone call from her in floods of tears. She was very apologetic, and I told her she doesn't need to be the one to apologize. She was so upset, she put FIL on the phone, who, while he sounded calm, I could just sort of tell he was on the warpath. Again, very apologetic, and said he overheard that phrase. Asked my husband, and husband initially said no, it's nothing, before explaining how it's a modern thing men to do, etc., and gave them the same spiel about how what happens on the gaycation. Men cannot resist the gaycation. How a man must surrender to the gaycation, etc. FIL just said they told him to leave, or they called the police. Don't care where he goes, but he wasn't staying there. Husband tried to call me while I was on the phone, but I just ignored it, and FIL just said he was so sorry for me, and they have my corner in this, so. That's one thing. Told them to be there for their daughter, because it sounds like BIL is involved. Husband didn't tell him that. And FIL just said he had to go, because he was so angry. Got a text from my husband after the phone call, which was all weirdly ramly, saying about how I'd abused the gaycation to destroy his marriage and destroy his life, and again insinuated I, and his parents, was homophobic for doing such a thing. Told him we'll talk when he grows up, and blocked his number. I took a day off work myself to have the locks changed this morning, so that's a 500 pounds gone, but whatever. At least I know he won't be coming back. I'm going to look into how to proceed with a divorce, and then we'll move from there. Oh, of course, there's also the brother-in-law. So I haven't yet met with SIL. She was in such a state and has taken this far. Far worse than I have for reasons that'll be clear soon. We're gonna maybe try tomorrow, but we did talk over the phone, and I eavesdropped on the conversation with her husband where she put her phone on speaker, and I went on mute. Her husband got home earlier. She made him come home, told him there was an emergency, and just said to him, "Can you please explain what a gaycation is?" She told me afterwards she was praying he'd look confused or just be like, "What?" or anything like that. But instead, he just sat her down and explained that a gaycation is a new thing where straight men go to gay hotspots and participate in gay sex acts, but it doesn't count because there's no investment, and because what happens on the gaycation stays on the gaycation. He said it's like writing down angry thoughts and putting them in a drawer. You never have to see them again. Whole time, SIL is in tears as he just calmly bats off the same points my husband did about how it doesn't count, and he even did the whole "it's impossible to resist, you must surrender or be destroyed" shit. I seriously think they must be speaking to a dominatrix or something. Are there even male doms? Because surely neither of them are that into this to actually make that up on their own. I really don't want to go into what was discussed for her sake, but it did become very apparent to me that the BL is into sissy hypno-porn, and at times conflated that with the concept of a gaycation. There was this utterly surreal moment where SIL is just trying to wrap her head around this while also in floods of tears, and he explains so genuinely, so matter-of-factly, that for most men, the gaycation is either a one-time or annual thing, but some men go on the gaycation for years, and others simply never return, because they use hypnosis and mind control to be totally feminized into a state of permanent pseudo-gayness. She said in disbelief, "Surely, if you're taking it up the arse willingly because you want to, that makes you gay." And he said no, because that's the beauty of the gaycation. You can do all this gay stuff, but you don't interact with the wider gay life experience. She asked him if the sissy stuff is what he wanted, and he said, not on a long-term basis, and was adamant this is something all straight men do, but she wouldn't get it because she's a woman. Then there were more insinuations of homophobia. Well, that marriage is dead too, I suppose. The whole ordeal ended when she said to him he has a choice to make, and he said no, he doesn't need to make this choice because the beauty of a gaycation is that it allows him to keep his marriage because it doesn't count. She said that's not the choice. The choice is whether he's leaving the house that night or she is. Only good thing he did was leave. Me and SIL spoke about it after that, and I'm just still utterly stunned. I understand she's gone to her parents for the support. What exactly did we do to have our lives destroyed in such an abrupt, bizarre, embarrassing way? For some advice, I'm going to look at devices and bank statements to see if I can find any definitive proof of cheating. After that, I suppose figure out how I tell the boys why their father won't be coming home. Edit. Spoke to other SIL. My husband's family is older sister, him, younger sister / original SIL, and gave her a skimmed-down version of it. She asked her husband, and thankfully, he was deeply confused, but then mentioned about 2 years ago at a birthday party, he was approached by my husband and BIL about signing up to some online boot camp around BDSM cross-dressing. He assumed they were taking the piss out of him, so told them to fuck off, and never really thought it again. The fact that this has been going on for that long is making me want to throw up. P.S. For the poster who said about divorce options, I'm actually going to look into adultery, because plain and simple that's what this is. Top comments. Commenter 1. Your husband and BIL are deep in a shared delusion that's destroyed 2 families. Their identical talking points about surrender and destruction prove this was coordinated. They're not just planning to cheat, they're already involved in some online community that's warped their thinking. The fact that they both instantly launched into the same script about gaycations shows this isn't spontaneous. You made the right call draining the account and changing the locks. Their attempts to flip this into accusations of homophobia show how desperately they're trying to avoid responsibility. The identical language, the bizarre aquarium and bird-watching analogies, the talk of surrender or be destroyed, they're in some online echo chamber that's completely divorced from reality. When your husband agreed to let you have a Manchester week, while crying, he revealed the whole lie. He knows exactly what this is, cheating. He just wants permission to do it while denying you the same. The talk about hypnosis and permanent feminization reveals just how far this goes. Get a lawyer, protect your assets, and document everything. This will get worse before it gets better. Focus on protecting yourself and your children, because they're too far gone in their shared fantasy to see the destruction they're causing. What a pathetic hill for 2 men to die on. They destroyed their marriages, traumatized their families, and alienated their parents, all while insisting none of it counts because they made up special rules about it. They want to cheat without consequences, and they've found an online community that validates this fantasy. Update to hi everyone. It's been a couple of weeks since the last post, and I honestly don't even know where to begin. Life has become a never-ending soap opera, and if someone had told me a year ago that I'd be unraveling the mysteries of gaycations, hypnosis, and cult-like behavior in 2025, I'd have laughed them out of the room. Here's where things stand. After changing the locks and cutting contact, I thought I'd seen the worst of it. Oh no. My husband took it to a whole new level. He sent me a 6-page handwritten letter delivered via courier, because he's blocked everywhere else. I was hoping it might contain some clarity, remorse, or at least a coherent explanation of his behavior. Instead, it was a deranged manifesto. He doubled down on the beauty of the gaycation and went on about how I was missing the bigger picture by focusing on outdated notions of fidelity. He referenced some obscure support group for liberated men he's apparently joined, calling it a community of truth seekers. He also claimed this group is a safe space for men like him to explore their inner selves without judgment, and how my refusal to understand made me part of the oppressive system. Oh, and the kicker? He closed the letter by saying he was moving forward with his trip to Ibiza, with or without my blessing, because this was about personal growth. Personal growth, my arse. If his version of personal growth is rolling around Ibiza in leather-hot pants, then so be it. But it won't be while he's married to me. I've officially filed for divorce under grounds of adultery. My solicitor said there's enough circumstantial evidence to make a strong case, especially with his confessions about the trip and the bank records showing some very specific online purchases. More on that later. My sister-in-law is not doing well. After confronting her husband, my BIL, and kicking him out, she found messages on their shared laptop that made her spiral. These weren't just about Ibiza or gaycations. Oh no. They uncovered a full-blown network of men discussing their experiences in these so-called safe spaces. Some of the messages were innocuous. What's the best place in Ibiza to stay for beginners? But others were horrifyingly graphic. One thread, in particular, detailed a bizarre initiation ritual involving, you guessed it, hypnosis. It turns out that BIL and my husband weren't just dabbling in porn or roleplay. They've been participating in what can only be described as an underground kink community centered around the idea of temporary identities. There were explicit instructions, schedules for workshops, and even a PDF handbook on embracing the gaycation fully. SIL showed me some of the messages because apparently I needed to suffer too, and I was genuinely at a loss for words. These men truly believe they can separate their sexual actions from their identities because they've convinced themselves it's all part of some transformative experience. It's like they've rewritten reality to suit their own selfish desires. SIL kicked him out, but that hasn't stopped him from being absolutely insufferable. He's staying with a friend, but he keeps calling her and leaving long, rambling voicemails about how she's being narrow-minded and how he's the victim in all this. He even told her she should be grateful he was honest about the gaycation because most men aren't, and she should see the bigger picture of what he's trying to accomplish. It's like they've both joined some bizarre cult of hedonism and self-delusion. SIL is now staying with her parents full-time, and they're helping her begin divorce proceedings too. Her parents, my in-laws, are absolutely furious and have basically disowned both of them. FIL told me he's never been so embarrassed in his life and doesn't want to be associated with either of his sons-in-law anymore. This has been the hardest part for me. My older son, 15, is perceptive, and he's noticed the tension, the absence of his dad, and the locks being changed. He asked me point-blank if Dad cheated. I didn't want to lie, so I told him in the most age-appropriate way possible. Your dad decided to make some choices that aren't good for our family, so I had to ask him to leave. My younger son, 10, hasn't asked many questions, but I can tell he's struggling. He asked me last night if Dad's coming home for his birthday, and I had to tell him no. That was the first time I cried in front of them. I hate this. I hate how selfish my husband has been and how this has left me to pick up the pieces while he gallivants off on his journey of self-discovery. Here's where it gets really unhinged. After filing for divorce, I decided to dig deeper into our shared finances to make sure there were no surprises. Well, guess what? I found more bookings. Not just for Ibiza, but also for what appears to be some sort of pre-trip essay.